Hello, Ray Lee with Speedboat Magazine here with another episode of the Boats and Bros podcast, and I'm with my bro Myrick Coil, who I haven't seen since Key West. How are you, bro?
Doing good. Finally getting, acclimated for back in Missouri and not so much Florida. Been there for, I think it was like 20 days.
Yeah, right, because
So,
you went down there ahead of Fort Lauderdale boat show and
yeah,
stayed throughout the whole
did some
time.
testing in Key West, came back, and then did the whole Fort Lauderdale, working on boats and hanging out in the new facility, which is unbelievable. The new Performance Boat Center facility that has lots of room for storage, lots of room for service and sales and things like that. And it's basically right by Port Everglades, right off of 595. I mean, it's awesome. So
That's awesome.
Spent a lot of time down there. Christian and my brother Lance and Maria and Jeff Corbell and the whole group of workers and detailers and all that. I mean, it's cool to see it all happening, especially in a big old shop like that.
Yeah, what's the square footage? Tell us about it.
I think I remember it being 40,000 square feet.
Wow.
But yeah, it's giant for a Fort Lauderdale location. I mean, for Lake of the Ozarks location, we're used to it. But,
yeah,
due to the high rent district, basically, that Fort Lauderdale is, there was a lot of boats, lots of MTIs in there, and lots of boats that were staging to go down to Key West. And then, once all that pulled out, they immediately filled back up with boats that were going on the FBC run. And, then just people that bring their boats down there from here or all over the country to stay in South Florida so they can do boating throughout the wintertime months.
Well, that's cool because before you guys kind of had a storefront and had to get creative on where you were going to keep all those boats, right?
Yeah, I mean, we basically had about 3 different facilities, and then they consolidated it. Jeff found this property, and it's way nicer. It's by a little brewery and by other boat-like stuff. It's really close to 15th Street, so we can go down there and launch boats there, or you can travel lift them there on 15th Street, or you can then go down to Haulover, and if you're got it all planned out and do it there too. So yeah, lots of options. It's being a guy from Missouri that usually works in a marina here to where we can dump a boat in the water in 30 seconds, and not have to worry about salt water, not have to worry about travel lists and all that stuff. It's eye-opening for me anytime that I'm down there working and trying to figure out the logistics of just basically getting the boat to the water. If I go to work, I've said this before on the podcast, but if I go to work and the guys have the boat ready, I can have it tested and back to the ramp by 8:30. Here, when you go down there, it's a half a day to a day job to, do it, just because of, whether it's idle zones, manatee zones, the ocean's really rough out there and you can't go out of this cut, so you got to run down here to go to this area. It's Mother Nature's much more of a beast in the ocean than it is in a lake. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that,
and Key West, Mother Nature showed what she can do.
Yeah. Tropical storm / hurricane Raphael,
yeah.
reared its ugly head and then kind of affected. It wiped out the first day of racing on Wednesday, which sucked, and then we kind of had to all regroup and figure out what to do. Hurricane party was fun, but wasn't very productive.
Yeah, and then customers getting nervous about having their boats, heading down to where there's a hurricane. Literally, I think it was a 2, then it turned to a 3, and then back to a 2 overnight. And it was only, not even 100 miles or 60 miles away from Key West, and
Hey,
when it's a category, you guys get up here, everybody see you, say hi.
Hi.
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Mama's at basketball practice, and Cam's sitting over here on the couch relaxing. He just had school today.
Nice.
First grade's a tough one on you.
He's a first grader now?
First grader, yep.
That's awesome. Do you like it?
Well, it's weird. Osage, we only have to go 4 days a week, so they better like it because they don't have to go that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, but Hurricane Raphael, they said it was 115-mile-an-hour winds out there, and we basically left the structures up to our tents in the pits, but took all the canopies down. So it's basically just trying to prevent shit from getting tore up, and batten down the hatches kind of stuff on Tuesday evening, and then Wednesday it blew all day and rained all day, and then Thursday it started to clear up and we got to go testing again and do some racing on Friday. But a lot of our customers and a lot of our employees had to figure out how to get these boats to Key West. People knowing that it's going to be nice on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, still want to do their boating, but they might already have their hotels lined up, and they're like, we'll just go to Key West, have our boat in the water down there. So,
Yeah.
and might to some people seem like not that far, but when you're pulling a big boat, especially a permitted load or something like that, it's usually 4.5, 5 hours from Fort Lauderdale to Key West. I mean, especially going 45 miles an hour on 2-lane highway. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so you get the boats down there, and then you launch them, and then you're like, okay, now we got to wash the trailer, and now we got to find a place to put the trailer. Oh, wait, there is no place to put the trailer. Let's take it back to Fort Lauderdale, and then the customer will boat back to Fort Lauderdale on Monday. So, it's
Wow.
just one of those things that people don't realize how much logistics go into it. For the person that just flies into Key West, goes to their hotel, and does their thing on Duval or go down to the pits and all that stuff, it's
Yeah.
fairly easy compared to having to take care of a boat for somebody, find a dockage, find safe dockage, especially, a lot of those places like the Weston, and it still can get pretty wavy there, unless there's a cruise ship in, but they don't want the cruise ships in there when it's really blowing. So pretty
Yeah.
wild. Different stuff that you don't realize when you're a Missouri boat mechanic compared to actually boating in the ocean, out there in the ocean, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew of quite a few people that were doing the run for the first time, and they got real nervous and opted to trailer down rather than boat down.
Yeah, I could see that too. And the thing for us, since we've done it so many times, and due to the fact the wind direction was out of the east, people don't realize, they think Florida, and when you come down, it's like Miami's here, Key West is way out here, what
Right.
my finger is. But I mean, it literally goes like this. And the islands or the keys really protect on an east wind. So when you get to Marathon and you have, a following sea, it's really not that bad. But and I always tell everybody, if you tuck out or if you pull out of right there at Sunset Grill on the very east side of 7 Mile Bridge, and you're like, oh man, it's really freaking nasty out here. You've got 7 miles to decide to whether you want to go back to the inside, because that's how long that bridge is, like 6.9 miles. So then at that point you can get back in to the protected area of the Gulf, and it is not hard to go from 7 Mile Bridge to the Gulf. I mean, literally with Garmin's these days, you can just go just like you you did all the way down there. So and then you might find better protection on the north side of the islands, trying to stay tight to them. So I don't know, it's not always the case, but there's been times to where we go out there at 7 Mile and we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a long next couple of hours, getting
Yeah.
wet. And but then we've then went to the inside and go, oh man, this is nice, just a nice
Right.
swell with no rip, no white capping on the waters, and the waves are way far apart. And you make it down there and you're like, well, that wasn't bad at all. But I know how people are, to where you're excited about going, and then you have people that are new at it, and then you have a big investment, being that it's a $1 million boat, $500,000
Right.
boat, whatever the price of your boat is. And then there's, people's lives that you're responsible for. Hey, let's just take it easy, trailer the boat down, and we'll go boating out of there. And then,
Yeah.
boat back. Here you go, bud. But yeah, so
Yeah, and there's no shame in that game. I mean,
Yeah,
better
yeah.
safe.
We never try to convince somebody to go when they're nervous. We
Yeah,
just like give them all of the, I don't know, things that we've learned over the years and try to make it to where they feel comfortable. And then that person that might be like, oh, yeah, I got a 50 MTI, I can make it no matter what. Like, okay, but you might just go out there and look and then come back in,
right.
and
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So
Because they were
anyway,
throwing up small craft advisories all week, and
yeah,
pretty
yeah. And I mean,
disconcerting.
when I was up there, I was staying in Fort Lauderdale, prior to heading down to Key West, and it was nasty. You look out at the beach, and it's just straight up white caps and huge waves coming in. It was like, I don't know, looking at Cocoa Beach, really,
Yeah,
where the big waves are coming in all the time. But yeah, so all that wind and weather, kind of came through, and then lots of people came down on that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the hurricane moved out, and we were boat racing and boating and all that stuff.
yeah. So the previous race you guys were in competing was Sarasota because Clearwater was canceled due to hurricanes, as was St. Petersburg, and so back to Key West was the first time you guys were racing since Sarasota. How did that feel getting back into the boats?
It felt kind of surreal because it'd been such a while since we'd been on the boat,
Mm-hmm.
and we we were testing the stock boat a lot. I mean, even before we went to back to Fort Lauderdale, we went down there and tested for a day. I wish we'd have done a lot better than that, but class, you got to run 110% all the time. And man, it's in that rough water. It's tough. You just
Yeah.
feel like you're going to wreck the boat, break the boat, and, a lot of the times I'll say how I ain't got a dime in it and I don't care, but I care.
Yeah,
It
for
makes
sure.
a big difference to me. Even I've said it before, probably as many times as we've had episodes on the podcast, but I really like having the owner of the boat in the boat because, then
Yeah.
you don't have to explain as much when the thing's crashed or blown apart. It's like they were part of
Right
making the
along, there was
decision.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but getting back into the boats after, having the other boat races canceled, we had some new engines in the Super Cat, and we went out and tested those on Thursday. We had went out and tested the class 1 boat on Tuesday, just, trying to get that thing better in the rough water. And we did. We made gains on both boats. And the Friday's race, start of the race in the Super Cat was unbelievable. The boat felt great. I feel that we, uh, were set up perfectly for the conditions. We could really haul ass, and the boat was actually faster than we anticipated. And we were in the lead, and then all of a sudden started to feel a vibration, like almost there was a propeller blade going or a drive shaft or something. So it was that violent of a rattle shake. But turned to find out, come to find out, it was a starboard engine. And really don't know what happened yet. The engines were just delivered back to Sterling yesterday. So, broken crank, broken rod, something. So, something threw out the bottom of the block, causing a giant mess and, blowing up an engine. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And that was the end of your day. And it makes that much more importance on the races because Wednesday
yeah.
was canceled.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. And I've said it before too. Feel like I'm repeating myself, but you got a podium or be close to the podium on the first 2 days and then control your own destiny on Sunday. And the fact that we had like a DNF on Friday in that boat, it was a big kick in the balls, but it was Tyler was, well, we were doing everything we could, and we haven't had that many failures, over the years, maybe a couple in 4 years.
Yeah.
One was a drive in Key West, that cost us a world championship 3 years ago, I think. And then the Sarasota water pressure deal that caught the boat on fire, and then now bottom end on the starboard engine. the guys worked their asses off on Friday night, missed the street party. We did our street party thing with the class one, and then Jake and the crew and Craig and everybody basically put 2 new engines in the Super Cat and had it ready for testing on Saturday morning. Class one, we had a fairly good run. I don't even remember where we finished on Friday's race. Maybe fourth or fifth. But the conditions for the bigger boats were better because you basically haul ass out, and as soon as you get about halfway to 3/4 way down that first big straightaway heading out to turn one, it starts to get rougher than hell.
Yeah.
And then you have to turn the boat right into them, which is a terrible feeling. And then the boat stands up like 3 or 4 times before you can get it rolling again. And then you start bringing it back into some washboard type water through the Fort Zachary area where they call the hole and along the outer mole there. And get hauling ass on the inside and get your hopes all up to be doing good just to go back into that again. So it's a wild feeling. It's one of the things I love about the Key West course is just the diversity of the waters. And I didn't want it as rough as it is now because I feel that we're a little bit better in the calm water, but it did good. So we went back testing on Saturday, made the boats better. Obviously you couldn't get any worse with a blown up engine and the Super Cat. So then we go back into testing all Saturday, lots of testing. We changed some drive heights and some weight in the class one. We put new engines in the Super Cat. We changed drive height and weight in the Super Stock and tried some different propellers. And then the wind started blowing again on Sunday to where we went racing, and Super Cat did the same thing, led for first few laps, and then Dirty Money showed up and kicked our ass.
Yeah.
Only so long I could hold them off, and I'm not that kind of driver that's just going to sit there and drive them everywhere the whole time.
Yeah.
If you got a faster boat, eventually I'm going to let you go. So
Yeah.
And they did. They had a faster boat. So
Yeah, they had
second place, Super Cat, which ended up being second overall with a DNF. So, I guess we finished. And actually, when we went to the award ceremony, I hadn't done any of the points. I don't know whether I was pouting or what. Not really caring because we go there to win. We don't go there for second or third. But
right.
Second place in Super Cat, and then we got a third in class one, which put us third overall in class one. So all of our testing and all that stuff paid off and got us 2 podiums that ended up being 2 overall podiums. So
well, yeah, Dirty Money put on a really a good show in Key West, and they were very fast, and so congratulations to them on the World Championship. You guys still came home with brought home the national championships in both Class 1 and Super Cat, but it had to have been disappointing for the Key West weekend for you.
Well, yeah. Like you can say, you go to win, and when you don't win, I guess that's why you do it, though. Heck, I don't know how many laps we did, but we did a bunch, and it was rough. I know I did 38 laps on Sunday, and you're done after that.
I bet.
It's not that you're like physically fatigued from like being exhausted. It's just you're just beat up, just sore, and back hurts and shoulders hurt and all that. But kudos to I was really impressed with SV Offshore too.
Oh gosh, Vinny
my man Greg had them boys out there running. Greg and Johnny and their whole crew, Jake and all that, and then Matt and Vinny to go out there and lead the first couple laps. And I was telling Viddy over and over how proud I was of them, but yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to him Friday night, and the performance they put on was just awesome. Unfortunately, that spin out, but
Yeah.
he
The
was telling,
the buoy jump, which I'll have to show you here. I'll pull this phone up. Matt's gonna kill me, but we were actually at the in the pits afterwards, and I go, Matt, what's that over there by the garbage cans? And he goes, no. I was like, yeah, them are the buoys you ran over. He's like, he's dying. He's like, I was like, dude, you got to go over there and and then the jokes started to fly because this was Monday morning and this is when we go and actually relax.
yeah,
And I said, and then Vinny came up, we should have a suit made out of it for him. And then they were like, yeah, let's just get one for him and put it on so he can hang it on the wall in his shop. He's like, no, let the garbage man take those things. It was funny. Yeah. But yeah, I was sitting right there, and when WHM and Vinny were heading out to one, we were sitting there, in the middle of the course, and you get a good vantage point to watch your race when you're sitting there broke down, sitting on the
yeah,
top of the boat. And I was like, man, WHM and Austin Holmes are really side by side. You see them go around turn one, and then next thing you know, I was like, man, I can't even tell who's who going into that second turn out there. Next thing I go, oh, Vinny just spun out. But when then I went back and watched the video, they actually jumped the buoy and then spun it around and wiped out the other buoy,
yeah,
knocking both of their skags off. And that's one thing Tyler and I said when they were getting back on. They didn't hydraulic the motors because Vinny said he had it freaking wide open the whole time through that turn, just because that's what they teach you as a throttle man. Like when that boat's backing in the other way, just gas the shit out of it. That way you don't hydraulic the water up your exhaust
yeah.
backwards, because the boat isn't designed to go backwards. So
Right.
anyway,
Well, that's what he did.
so that's what he did, and it didn't
Yeah,
hydraulic. Boat hopped back on plane. He took off, and Tyler and I were saying to ourselves, or saying to each other, we're like, "Man, he better be careful. He might be missing a skeg or two, And
yeah,
then down the first straightaway, you could kind of see that the spray looks different out of the back of the boat. It looks agitated instead of a nice tight rooster tail where they fold over top of each other.
yeah,
And yeah, when they turned in, and I didn't hear them on the radio or anything. We already had our headsets off. And then because it might have been the last lap or second to last lap when they did it. But then when we got to the crane and they picked their boat up, it looked just like any other boat that breaks the skags off it. It leaves like a little, just like a little teardrop. It's a wild shape, but it's like it must be a weak point in the drive or how the drive goes. I actually got a pin here, so I'll show you. This is how it looks when they break off after they're
yeah,
gone. And originally, they look like they come down and do this at a big angle, and that's how they look before. So it's like they leave this little nipple on the bottom of them. It's wild.
yeah,
And they all look exactly the same. I mean, my brother used to save them and say he was going to forge them and melt them down, and I don't know what he was going to do with all these broken gear cases that we had. But
yeah,
anyway, but it's crazy that they break exactly the same way every time.
yeah. Well, I had a different vantage point for the first time in a long time. I was in the studio with X Insurance announcing the broadcast live stream for them, and it was weird seeing every bit of the course, right? Because the helicopter was chasing you guys out to turn one, and then down to two, and then back.
Yeah.
Normally we lose sight of you, and then wait for you guys to come back into sight, and then we pick you up again with the cameras. But this way, I saw almost every part of the race. And when I saw Vinny spin out, I texted him like, "Hey, what happened?" And he just responded, "Helicoptered it,"
Helicoptered it. Yeah.
And
He
but
said,
yeah,
I think he said to me, like when we were drinking, he goes, "We went until we ran out of talent." I think he said something like that. But
yeah, no,
but it was like literally, put two boats going to the same spot, and then one boat not giving in, and then the other boat hitting the buoy. And it's crazy how them buoys, you think just a thin air balloon that you would go right through them, but you actually jump them.
Yeah.
Especially when you take them down the tunnel. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like at lake race when I was going to eat one right down the tunnel, super stock, and P1 has some giant ones, and I was like, well, either I can try to go like around this or just dive underneath it and take my penalty. And it's the only time I've ever done it, but I just decided not to pop the whatever thousands of dollar buoy and not have to think about it. Just take my lick.
Yeah, because you take one out, you have to replace it. You have to pay to buy a new one, right?
Yeah. We were giving Matt shit about that too. We were saying something like, did you just order some and say you're going to replace them and stay pay this exorbitant amount of money they always say? I forget what they say. It's like when they say it in the driver's meeting, like, geez, them things are that much. But I think they say that so we stay away from them.
Right.
But I think it's like 2,500 or 3,000 or something what they say in the middle. But still, I wouldn't want to hit it.
Right. Well, I mean, so back into Key West, you had triple duty again, running the Class 1 boat, the Super Cat boat, and then the Super Stock. With the conditions that big, it must have been one heck of a ride to go from such a smaller boat like the Super Stock to the Class 1, and the conditions that are presented.
Yeah, it's really not that bad because I'm used to all the boats. As far as the feeling of the boat and driving the boat, hard part is, and I'm going to be a little bitch like I normally am, and is putting that fire suit on in the Class 1. That thing weighs like, I don't know, 5-7 pounds when I put it on. When I take it off, it's like 35 pounds. It's so saturated. It's nasty.
Yeah.
And it's like wearing a snowsuit in, 120 degree boat.
Right. The humidity.
I mean, I get why they have us do it. It does look more professional, all that stuff. But
I thought I saw some Class 1 guys not wearing the full fire suit.
Yeah. I think some of them even like got medical passes like from their doctor saying, due to the fact it's so hot, he might overheat and all this. But Tyler, being the awesome sponsor, awesome, I don't know how you get the awesome employee or awesome, team owner that, wants to do the best for his sponsor. He's like, yeah, Monster wants us to wear him. We're going to wear him. Like,
yeah.
Don't think that I don't try. Like,
but those guys are wearing the show.
I'm fading on you, buddy. I'm fading. He's like, oh, you'll be all right.
Tell my mother I love her.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. And actually, when we were going to talk about the Key West, it was so rough on Sunday. We came around the turn of the Class 1 and I chipped my teeth. Oh, shit. I can feel it. And
what, just by clamping down on
no, just taking a shot and like, your teeth hit, you're just jarred so hard. Yeah. I mean, it'd probably be smart to wear a mouthpiece, but like I said, if you're gonna be dumb, you got to be tough. Right. And the whole thing about, I'm spitting they're not like big chunks of my tooth, but enough to where it's like, I'm spit a piece of my tooth out. Yeah, you're like, oh, this is awesome.
Wow. That happened on Sunday's race?
Yeah, Sunday's race.
Sunday's race conditions were bigger than Friday's?
Yes, they were. Yep.
Wow.
Yep, we were propped down a little bit in both boats. Yep, all three boats.
Yeah,
and felt that we had them chosen pretty good. So, I mean, we were doing good. I don't know how close third place was to us in Super Cat, but I felt like we had them covered pretty good. And I assume it was Vinny or Grade, probably maybe Grade L on Sunday. It's funny, you don't pay it. When you're in first, you worry about everybody behind you.
Right.
When you're in second, you worry about who's in first. And when you're in third, you worry about who's in second and first. So it's like, it depends, and as soon as like, and we've been watching this Scrapyard Media Super Cat video.
Super Cat series. Yeah, that's
Super Cat series. It's unbelievable, ain't it?
Yeah.
And it's funny is like watch that marathon race where it's like Dirty Money and us are battling, and then they run out of fuel on the last lap, and you hear me on the radio immediately go and say, "Where's everybody else at?" And I haven't been asking that, the whole entire race. But as soon as you get to first, it's like, okay, where's everybody else at? Because I haven't been paying attention to what's going on behind me at all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but yeah, that's kind of how. So Key West, yeah, disappointed. Did a lot of laps on Sunday. Finished all of our laps on Sunday. Basically finished all of our laps in every class except for the engine brake of Super Cat, which was probably the most disappointing part of the whole weekend. So
I'm sure. And as catastrophic of damage that the engine sustained, you guys opted to change both engines out instead of just the one. What's
yeah,
the
it's
reasoning
just
behind
one of
that?
those things. It's you don't know if it was, manufacturer part failures. Maybe there's a bad run of rod bolts. Maybe there's something that was missed, So at that point, these other two engines that we put back in weren't brand new. They are the ones that we had raced in through the season, basically, other races throughout the year. And that's one of the things that kind of came down to missing those other two races that the Hurricanes on the west side of Florida conflicted us with. Normally, when we go to Clearwater, we put the engines in for the Clearwater race that we're going to race in Key West.
Yeah.
So then we get what we call the shakedown run. And there has been times that we go to Clearwater, race the race, and maybe find something that could have potentially took us out, whether it's and that would have happened. We would have broken the engine in Clearwater just like we broke it in Key West. And potentially could we have not been national champions because of it if we were racing there? Maybe, but it's a catch-22 also that
Right.
you really don't know about. And but we would have not had, and not saying that it would have happened, but it probably would have, because it was like we went out and did 2 or 3 laps and testing on Thursday, and the boat felt great. And so we've ran that boat so much, we're like, okay, no reason to put any more time on it. And then 3 laps later, it knocks the bottom end out of it. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of tough to say.
I ran into Tyler briefly before Sunday's race, and he was a little concerned with the new engines that you guys had in the Super Cat because it had the old school style heads as opposed to the advanced.
And it's what we're learning with this new head rule. Like, so basically the head rule is there is no rule. So people are experimenting with different things, and even, and it was happening last year with Pro Floors and with the Kazis and all that. And then, but we hadn't done anything. And we did at the beginning of the season, we hadn't done anything to the heads. And then we've started since then doing some small changes. Potentially could that be what took us out? I don't think so, because it was all bottom end related.
Yeah.
So unless this new engine, makes a harmonic that the other one doesn't, make, that like lets a rod bolt back out or something at a certain RPM, or or it's banging the rev limiter so hard. But I mean, on that Friday race, we sat there and watched Great L go by us time and time again, and that thing was so hard on the rev limiter. I've never heard a boat on the rev limiter for so long. It was lap after lap. I was like, I'm no engine freak, but I was like, no way this thing's gonna make all the race, and there they go, just on the rev limiter the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was wild to hear it like that, especially being a spectator in the middle of the course.
Yeah. You had mentioned no rules as far as the Super Cat goes. They also eliminated the maintain your lane rule.
Yeah, and that's the way it used to be.
Mhm.
So it's just, and I think that was 2018, 2019 they changed that. And it leaves less bitching after the race.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're not in a lead boat going out to one or whatever course it is, you're going to eat shit. You're going to
Yeah.
get washed down and not be able to see for a long amount. So I don't know. You tell me what the rule is and I'll do it because of all of the different things that, you know, can happen. I was happy that there was something, you know, done to try to change it, because it sucks when every race you go, there's a conflict or a protest at turn one every time.
Yeah.
You know, even when they were, even before the race, even Wednesday's race before it was canceled, they were talking about the stock boats due to the fact there was 14 or 15 of them out there. What are we going to do for turn one? And are we going to maintain our lane? Are we going to like make it a free for all? Are we going to make a longer buoy to where half the boats have to go to this longer buoy on the first lap, and then the next second lap, the rest of the boats have to go to this long buoy? And, you know, it's funny. At first, I was like, well, that sounds stupid. But then again, 14 of us going into turn one side by sounds stupid too. So that's why we voted on the, you know, like, hey, whatever you guys want to try, let's do it. You know, maybe we can get some separation, and maybe the boat that was eighth position, you know, because that's it, there was 14 and Sunday's race, there was 14 boats, and I was boat 7, and it's exactly where I don't want to be in
super stock.
super stock and super cat. I think I was please don't. And super cat, I think I was in second, maybe, or even pole. But anyway, a good position. And in class 1, I was on the outside, which in class 1, the whole field jumped other than X Insurance and DF Young. And it was such a bad jump by all them boneheads that they called them all back and said, hey, that was a red flag. I was like, hand out some penalties. You know what I mean? I was like, what about the guys that are sitting back here watching all these other boats take off and going, well, they're going to be penalized. Next thing you know, Roderick gets on the radio, is like, red flag, we're going to restart that. That was terrible. And I'm like, yeah, it was terrible. So I don't know. It was,
Yeah.
you know, and that's the one thing that's fun about Key West. And I always said it before, and just like so many things, you learn so much when you race 3 times, 2 times in a week that, you know, compared to Sunday, you go out there and do 1 start. You know, when you do multiple starts and you do multiple practices and you start getting used to other guys' tendencies, you know, you can learn so much more rather than just be like a one and done kind of thing.
Right.
So, you know, I think that Race World did a good job with their starts. I mean, they actually penalized everyone in the 450 class for jumping the start, other than Gladiator. Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, talk about a big penalty. I don't know how many boats were in the 450 class, but 90% of them got penalized.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then
everybody but Gladiator.
Yeah, everybody but Gladiator. Which,
from what I understand, it was a 1-minute penalty to everybody.
Yeah, and you know, it's not that can remember that I've ever seen it, but they could have done that to the class 1 class, in my opinion, too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think there's still some protests going on in that class to see how it shakes out.
That's the one thing that sucks about the way that it works. You know, it's unofficial until it's official, and then they say that it's official, but then people keep protesting it deeper and deeper, and that's when it gets to be no fun.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, after all the dust is settled, and then, you know, you get awarded or, you know, penalized, and, you know, there's no pomp and circumstance in that. After it's just like, it's done.
Exactly. I know. And you know, and then it's like, okay, this guy was a world champion, this guy's a national champion. It's become so convoluted and diluted that you don't even realize what's going on. And then, you know, somebody puts, hey, we won Friday's race, but you're like, well, that's only 25% of the race, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it becomes a little bit of, and you know, I know you do it for your fans and the spectators and the people watching on social media and all that, but I can see where it becomes confusing to people that don't really understand exactly what's going on every
Yeah.
day, and how the point system works for the entire Key West.
And yeah, that was one of the things that I really wanted to convey in our broadcast on the X Insurance live stream is that, we kind of take it for granted, especially the bracket classes. They say, well, that boat broke out and so therefore it didn't win, even though it seems like they won. And so we kind of made it a point to explain what that meant and, what speed certain classes had to maintain before they get quote unquote broken out.
Yeah, and it is wild that, a lot of that people don't even realize that it's even there. So it's at
Yeah.
class 5, 6, and 7 of
Yeah.
the bracket classes.
Mhm.
And do you remember the speeds off the top of your head? I don't know them.
I don't. I mean,
I think it's
but
like
I had
65, 75, 85 or something like that.
Yeah, it was like 75, 70, 65
Yeah.
in those increments going downward. And
Yeah, so potentially they got a data logger in the boat and it has a GPS puck in it. They basically strap this thing in the boat and then they can't go over that speed.
right,
Or they can run right up to that speed and they can get at it, and if they hit the speed, they have to get back under it within like 3 seconds.
right, yeah,
So if you go over that speed, so people like, oh well, you just prop the boat to not go that fast. I was like, well, kind of hard to say that,
yeah,
until
exactly,
when somebody's pulling away from you, and or you can go real short depending on conditions and try to have better acceleration. But I know I couldn't race in that class because my mind doesn't work that way. Where it's like, okay, pull up on the throttle because we're going 84.8, and you don't know if that
right,
guy beside you is broken out or not, because it's not like it throws a big siren up like, hey, that guy ahead of you has
yeah,
actually broken out. Because in your mind, you're like, I got to beat that guy,
yeah, because you're
but
racing.
because I'm racing,
Yeah,
So, but I like the equality that it makes, because it really doesn't matter what power you have, what drive you have, whether you got 2 or 3 people in the boat,
yeah,
all that
yeah,
stuff. It
right,
just matters if you didn't go over that speed. And I think there's more rules to it than that, like certain
yeah,
size of boat and
for sure.
things like that. But yeah, it is neat for people to try to understand that. And then you go into stock class, and that's a stock 300 and a 32-foot boat, which can be smaller. And then there's weird rules on weight, like the smaller boat can weigh less, which never made sense to me. It's
Yeah,
like, you'd think it would be the opposite. The smaller boat has to weigh more, kind of thing. And then you go into stock 450, which bigger boat, has to weigh 6,500 pounds, has to have a 450R on it, and then have all the safety stuff. And then you go into I guess you would call it Super Cat after that. Super Cat, you have to weigh 9,500 pounds, but you can have a big block Chevy made by anybody you want, as long as it meets these certain parameters.
yeah,
And then you go into what would be next? Class 1, 1,100 turbos, 11,750 pounds, unless you have a tunnel tab. You have to weigh 12,250. Yeah, so I mean, it's just, they should have it broke down for the people, easier for them to understand it. Whether it's
yeah.
like a disclaimer at the beginning of the race, and I know you guys tried to do it, you being Mr. Broadcaster guy now. uh, and,
Wouldn't say that.
but, it is hard for a lot of people to understand it. And I remember going to dirt tracks and know, hey, that's a modified, hey, that's a late model, hey, but I didn't know what the actual rules
Right.
were of it. I just
Yeah,
look at the boat or the car being that much different looking than, well, that's a wing sprint, or you look at that to know the difference. And which in boats, sometimes they look a lot alike.
for sure.
And
Yeah,
like you look at a super stock, look at Jackhammer, and then look at one of the stock 450s. And other than, if you're not like a boat savvy person, you're not going to really notice the difference in those two boats, because
yeah,
they're within 3 feet of each other or in length, but then, 300 horsepower in difference. So
yeah. And that was the tough part is calling the bracket classes because they're so similar, in size for the
yeah,
most part. Until you can see their number,
number.
you don't know
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
in winning or in the lead of that class.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, especially with the Turk family, they have all these X Insurance boats out there. And I'm like, which one's that one? which one's
Yeah.
that one? You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
is that
The bad
JJ? I don't
decisions at
know.
Golf and
No, is that
Gator.
Cameron? Oh, there's Cameron in his new Seaboat. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
And there goes Boyus. And, you know, okay. But that one's red, but that one's green, but they look the same. You know,
Yeah.
I know I was
Yeah, there
doing
was
the
a lot
same
of
thing.
that neon green and that one red and gray boat out there, and
Yeah.
just making laps, and they definitely made a strong showing.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's so impressive. I mean, I know what it's like trying to get one boat there and do what
Yeah.
we did, let alone have a plethora of them.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the things that I noticed on the broadcast, just watching the cameras and calling it, you know, based on what I was looking at. Was it Super Cat then Class 1 or the other way around?
It was Super Cat Class 1, then stock. Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's how we raced every day.
So I remember, I think it was Sunday's race when Britt Lilly came in and, you know, jumping out of the Dirty Money boat and getting ready to jump into the Class 1 boat, similar to what you do.
Mhm.
And he was like, obviously elated at their finish
Mhm.
on Sunday, but he had a little bit of downtime, but he just kind of like laid back on the deck of the Class 1 boat and just kind of like, it looked like he was exhausted.
Yeah,
And just kind of
you
getting
are.
his wind until, you know, until the start of the Class 1 race, which made me automatically think of you doing triple duty and
Mhm.
what that must be like, you know, just to get that high of a high and then have to shut it down and then refocus and then shift into the next race mindset and
Mhm.
refocus and get ready for that.
It is wild. I don't think that Messi's making faces at me, so I can block things out, I guess, if you want you to say, but yeah, so you can't think about it, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think about it. I don't think about the pain or I just try to think about how I'm going to do good in every turn. You know, and don't worry about the 5 laps from now. Worry about the next turn. And that's how I think of it. Like, okay, next straightaway. Okay, this sucks through this section, but we're going to get a good run in here, and we're going to try to make up some time. And okay, let's worry about that turn. So that's how I think about it. The Roderick, when I got there, I was like, "So you got these all spread out for me?" Because to be honest, Roderick, you know, it was 3 years ago on that Monday after. And I was like, "Yeah, I have a chance to do 2 Monster Energy boats and a super stock." And he's like, and I was like, "Yeah, but I don't think I'm gonna do it." And he's like, "Pussy," and I'm like, "What?" I was like, "I thought you were gonna be the one that said, yeah, don't do that," you know. And so, and I was like, okay, you're gonna call me that? I'm gonna show you, you know. and you know, so then I was like, so how do you got these races spread out so I get a little bit of rest? And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, you realize we have like 7 races through the day or 6 races. I mean, I hope that all of my races aren't back to back to back. He's like, oh yeah, they're back to back to back. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. He's like, well, you know, you race Super Cat, which one of the premier classes, and you say Class 1, you got to have that late in the day. And then, you know, you're going to have stock class that has the most boats in it. So we do that one. I'm like, okay. And then on Friday's race, and I went and let him know. And then somehow he forgot that I was doing all 3 because we were like literally crossing the start finish line of the Class 1 and turning to the infield, still sitting in this, you know, strapped in, all this garb on. And they're like, super stocks, get off the wall, get out to the milling circle. I'm like, what? I'm still on the course in this one, you know? So then I'm like, Tyler's like, I'll get you there. And we fly across the course in there. And I'm trying to get all this stuff. And literally, it's so stuck on me. I have to have Tyler pull the sleeves off so I can get out of this stupid suit. And then I get out of it. And I'm like, oh, I feel good now. I mean, I could do this now, you know, that I get that suit off and then hop in the super stock and then take off. And we're the last one out there. And then on Saturday, I go to, or Sunday morning, I go to Roderick. I go, you do you realize that oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. He goes, yeah, there is 20 people doing double time. And he goes, but there's only one person doing triple time. I'm like, yeah, one idiot. And that's me, is what I said to him.
Because you called me a pussy.
Yeah, because you called me a pussy. And I'm going to show you, you know. Yeah, so.
Have you shown him?
No. No. Now 38 laps, and I don't know how many parade laps, and we had restarts and all that thing on Sunday.
Yeah.
Tell you what,
Yeah.
you're done. You've
Yeah.
had enough boat racing for one day, that's for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, I forget what the math was last year. I think last year with with the 3 races and 3 days, I forget. I did the math just to see how many miles I had went. Now I think it was like 400 and some miles or
Jesus.
something.
Yeah,
But-
that's wild.
But you know, it's one of those things.
Well, yeah. So the 2024 offshore racing season was definitely a wild one, and with ups and downs and all kinds of stuff. And there seems to be a lot of confusion going into 2025 as to who's going to be
Yeah.
new races and which organization's doing what.
Yeah,
Have
I'm
you
actually
gotten any?
excited about the new races. I've heard
Yeah.
Toronto for sure. I've heard
Right.
going back to Michigan City with the whole show.
Right.
I've heard
Chicago, right?
which, you know, that's cool. That's only 3 hours from where I grew up, or 2.5 hours from where I grew up. So I always
Yeah.
like that, going back to places that, you know, my family and friends from, you know, Central Illinois can go to.
Yeah.
Which Michigan City's the same way. But I like those big city deals. That I remember racing in Toronto, and I don't know, it was 2005 or 2006, 2004, somewhere in there. And it was a neat deal. It
Yeah.
comes right after either the Indy cars are there, the F1 cars are there, some open wheel car thing that goes through the town.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's how it's going to be next year too. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, to be honest, I don't know what I'll be racing. I don't
Yeah.
know what Tyler will be racing. So he's pretty burnt out on all the drama that Super Cat brings on. You know, and it's sad because he's been such a, you know, supporter of it and trying to get the class to grow, and now it's just, you know, constant meetings, constant accusations, and it's just not fun. And when it ain't fun and a guy's spending a shit ton of money, you know, it's hard to stay excited about it.
Yeah.
As far as I know, he's still excited about Class 1.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
and the Performance Boat Center boat, stock boat's going to go up for sale because we're talking about, you know, eventually getting into the 450/500 class, because they're going to they have the new 500 comp coming out.
Yeah.
We can run one of our performance power boats in it, but you know, we have so many boats to build and catch up with that, you know, it couldn't be, you know, right on the front burner right away. So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. It's one of those things that, you know, racing is fun, and racing gets you a lot of notoriety and people enjoy it, but it's not what pays the bills. So
Right.
yeah, you gotta make sure that you cover that first and take care of your customers, and before you go ahead and just, you know, say, hey, I'm going to race 3 boats next year and all this.
Right. Right.
Because I really don't want to do that, because it wears on you, especially an old guy like me.
Well, there was a rumor, you know, circulating around Key West that saying that MCon was going to be, you know, stepping away from Supercat competition.
Mm-hmm.
Is that any truth to that?
You know, Tyler always says we'll have a meeting if he's really serious about thinking about doing that, because he thinks about me and my family and my career just like he thinks about his. And we have never had that meeting.
Yeah.
He said he had asked me, what do I think about sitting out? And I said, well, it's my favorite class. And he goes, yeah, I get it. And so, you know, but I'll support him in whatever decision he makes, you know.
Of course.
And I've said that to many people, like everybody, you know, like when Mark came to me and said, hey, let's go boat racing in 2016. I was like, okay, it wasn't me going to Mark like, hey, let's go boat racing. It wasn't me going to Tyler like, hey, let's go boat racing. You know, it's like these people come to me and go, hey, I want to go boat racing.
Yeah.
What should we do? And that's the same way with Class 1. I mean, I don't know whether I'm not that good a judge of character or judge of what somebody's feeling, but I never thought that Tyler would be a class 1 guy, you know?
Yeah. Right.
And then, hey, 2 years later,
Yeah.
we've been racing class 1, you know, and so
Yeah.
so it's whatever I'm told by Tyler Miller or Mark Waddington or Brett Manier or any other customer that, you know, somebody that, is reputable and we love, that's how it's going to all shake down. And
Yeah.
I mean, it literally could be a decision that's right before. I don't know if Cocoa Beach is the first race for next year, because I heard Marathon's out,
I heard the same, and I think we got
which
confirmation of that.
I like that race, but I just don't like the timing of it,
Yeah.
because it's like a month before Cocoa, and Cocoa was always our starting race of the year, and it just feels like, I don't know whether we procrastinate too much or whether there's just so much work that, with that marathon race being so much closer,
Yeah.
it just seemed like we were always like
Sneaks up on
falling
you, right?
behind.
When
Yeah, sneaks up on you. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that that'll give the teams more time to prepare for the races. But then, once the season gets started, it definitely seems like it's going to be kind of a cluster once trying to get all those different races in. I mean, I was looking at my schedule this year, and in one weekend in June, there's like 6 different events that we normally try and cover, but they just all happen to land on that one same weekend. And then I heard that Chicago may be on Labor Day weekend, which I don't know how that will work, especially on a big city like that.
Yeah. It's one of those things that's, it doesn't always make sense. And we like the things that make sense. I mean, to be
Right.
honest, this year, when we had the big gap in the summertime, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've said it before, another one of those things, I'm just repeating myself, but why aren't we racing in Florida in the wintertime?
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
it's like nobody wants to be in Missouri now. Nobody wants to be in Michigan in the next couple months. Like, let's go to take all the boats down there and go racing, a winter series. And
Yeah.
whether we do a February, March, or I don't know, it's just a pipe dream. But I always think, what are we doing in, Sarasota on 4th of July when we could be here in January?
Right. Yeah, they tried to move it away from the sweltering heat of June, July, but it was still hot in September,
Oh
right?
yeah, it's windy and nasty, and I love the adversity of that course too. But it was nasty,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I get why. So the way that it works is money, of course. So
Right.
people, these venues down in Florida don't have people in the summertime because it's hot. So Chamber of Commerce wants to get things riled up, get people
Yeah.
there, get some, what do they say, heads for beds, and then but in February everybody's already down there.
Yeah.
So they're like, why should we pay to have the boat races here when there's already people here?
Right.
But
Yeah.
I get it. But and one of those things, if I were king, we would be racing in nice areas when it's shitty here.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, when it's August and you go to the shootout, it's so hot. But when it's August and you go to St. Clair, Michigan, you're like, I totally get why people summer up in the UP and all this is like 75 degrees and there's a breeze and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so nice, compared to 95 and just sweat dripping off your elbows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, racing aside, what was your most memorable or most fun experience in your Key West trip this go around?
Oh man, I don't know. It's the Monday. Actually, a lot of it was hanging out at the shop before Key West was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because it was cool to see how much those guys are carrying and kicking ass at the South Florida store. I mean,
Yeah.
and that was makes you proud because, hopefully things that we tell them and things that we, lead by example make that, one of the proud points. And I really enjoyed doing that. Missy's dad had a little bit of a medical issue, so I usually say that my ride down on Saturday in Tyler's new 50 would have been but I didn't get that. So Jason and Missy and I drove the toter down, and then Sunday the parade, that was pretty good. The world's slowest boat parade. I tell Roderick, instead of he used to call it the fastest, now it's the world's slowest. And then I don't know. I had friends, neighbors from here at Lake of the Ozarks, the Hobshites and the McCardles that literally had never been to the Key West boat races came down. And so then they hung out with us on Monday, and we all went to Dante's, and we were all, I was sore and licking my wounds. And then, so I'd say hanging out with my wife and friends on that Monday, after, the whole race weekend went down. So, it's one of those things. I don't know. It's not that I don't like the boat racing the most, but I've done it so much that it's, I had a bunch of days of racing and testing, and then I get one afternoon after we help Jason get all the stuff done up.
Right.
And then, so it's like power hour to where you're trying to, like get all this fun that you missed out that everybody else was doing all week in, and then you go and get a drunk tattoo. So
yeah, I got a text from Vinny of his toe, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, you dummy. And then I got another picture of like 4 or 5 of you.
5, 6 total.
6.
I can't believe I thought of it as we walked in. I mean,
that was your idea?
Yeah, I guess. I remember saying it to him, being like, hey, we should all get a camel on our toe. And then next thing you know, there was a line. You can't put this as the freaking thing on
the teaser.
On the no teaser. No teaser. Missy saying, come on. But yeah, so
yeah, she said you were wearing socks the other day, which is
she acts like I'd never wear socks. It's wintertime. It's fall. Oh my God.
Are you hiding it from your kids?
No. Well, I don't want my kids to see it, but because that's going to be a hard one to explain. I'll wait till they get older.
Yeah, you could just say it's your favorite zoo animal.
Yeah. It looks like one of them animal crackers, to be honest with you.
the artist wasn't that good. It was the
no, what was funny artist. Is like, no, he was good, but I mean, your toe's only so big. I mean, he's like, do you want to add just an outline or do you want the whole thing? We're like, we want the whole thing. Duh. After we're 10 Tito's and tonics deep.
Yeah. You were trying to talk
whatever they say about like tattoo artists not giving you tattoos when you're drunk, it's a total lie. They'll do it whenever. As long as your credit card crosses through there and works, they'll draw it up. So it's pretty funny, and it's just, and I'll laugh about it, but it's just still hasn't really came in yet.
Should have known it was your idea. You were trying to talk me into staying an extra day, and in hindsight, I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what's funny too is like that. So then we're like, I don't know how many of us had it done. It was Vinny, then me, then Jake, then Johnny, then Ian, then Kyle. So it was like all these people getting it. I was like, so you ever done this before to the tattoo artist? He's like, oh yeah, hundreds of them. And I'm like, what? So my idea wasn't that original. He's like, no. I was like, oh man, I was hoping I was the only one of 6 dudes that had a camel on his toe. So then Jason sent a text the other day. It was pretty funny. Jason Billmeyer. And it was all about, let me see if I can find it. I probably can't now, but it was pretty funny because I was talking about here's the in Amen, the black camels are not only valued for their physical traits, but for their symbolic and spiritual meanings. They're often associated with wealth, power, and prestige, and are a status symbol for most wealthy families and tribes. So I got that going for me. But promise that had nothing to do with the whole funny.
But that's a good backstory if you ever need it.
I mean, we're just doing it trying to get rich. Maybe I'll get more subscribers on my Boats and Bros podcast. Yeah, maybe.
Not likely. We've been hovering for the same time.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You guys get on there and hit like and subscribe. Log into your Google account and go after it.
Do it for the toe.
I'll get another stupid tattoo if you do it. Missy said she'll pick it. I was like, oh, I guess you couldn't do any worse than I do for myself.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, we barely got to hang out with each other, so it was good catching up with you.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. We always talk about, hey, we're going to do a podcast, we're going to do this, but you're constantly like wearing the batteries out in your phone, trying to get content for your magazine. And then, you know, all the people that you have to keep happy through sponsorship and all that. It's constant. Yeah. It's not like you get to go down there and hang out. That's for sure.
Yeah. But, you know, that's why we do it. But it's always a great time. And, you know, we got to catch up for a little bit on the Friday night parade after you guys got staged up. And it's always fun seeing people come up to us and say, hey, you guys are on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. I love that. I actually had a family come up that had, I forget, I think he said 12 years of pictures with his son of at street party. Yeah. And I take him up on the boat, and you know, it's one of those things that only takes 5 minutes, but this family remembers it forever, and it's like one of those things. So
that's awesome.
That's one of the great things about that street party is all them people that I only see that time of year, and they always make sure they come and see me to say hey, and you know, good luck, congratulations, way to blow up the boat, stuff like that. But that after that, a good friend, customer, Scott Rosenbach, actually, I talked him into getting a tattoo because he always says 100%. I mean, he says it all the time. Like, that's his yes.
Yeah.
Like, hey, it's a nice day out today. 100%, you know? And so he went and got a 100% tattoo on his wrist, just like
the same one that you guys have.
Yeah, same one.
That's
and then
awesome.
His buddy, Dimitri, his says 100%, right? when he puts his finger up in front of his, I don't know, he was doing something like this, but I think it was funnier when he made it look like his mustache. But it was great. Yeah, I got pictures of them getting tattoos, but
that's awesome.
Theirs doesn't hold a candle to mine. Hold a camel to mine. Theirs doesn't hold a camel to my tattoo.
Oh man. All right, on that bad joke.
That dad joke.
Bad dad joke.
Bad dad joke.
Oh, I loved it though. This has been another episode of the Boats and Bros podcast. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe onto our YouTube channel so that we can start getting monetized for this. So.
Yeah.
So we can pay for more of Myrick's dumb tattoos.
Exactly. Let's go.
Anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to tune in, like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Boats and Bros podcast. Thanks, Myrick.
Thank you, Ray.
See ya.
This podcast is powered by Speedboat Magazine. Subscribe now at speedboat.com for 9 power-packed current issues a year direct to your mailbox.